your socks. Hey!
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that has given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? And make sure you go to our website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. Go check it out. See what we're all about. There is a merchandise tab. You can click on that merchandise tab. There are some cool hats and shirts and cups and all kinds of goodies. But go there, check it out. And if you want to get something, go ahead and help support us. All right, a big shout out to the Marine Corps League out there doing some great stuff. And to all the Marines out there, there is a place for you once you get out. It is the Marine Corps League. So go check them out at mcleague.org. And I always need to give a shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing some amazing things. Be sure you go check them out at their website. And if there's any way you can help them, it would be much appreciated.
Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member.
All right, I'm back. I have my guest here, Drew Toothman, Marine veteran. How you been doing, man?
Life is full, busy, full
Yeah,
throttle, man.
yeah, as it should be. You gotta just go with the flow, and hopefully you can keep up, right?
Yeah, every day is a different adventure, man, and it never plays out like you think it's going to.
That's a true statement there. Oh man. Well, hey, Drew, I'm glad you're here. I do want to hear all about you. So let's go back to the beginning, where you grew up. Tell me a little bit about that, and then what drew you into military service.
All right, I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. Um, Nice, quiet little town. And what drew me into military service? Honestly, my grandfather was in the Navy, my uncle was in the Army, my father was in the Air Force. And then when I was about 15, my brother got this postcard in the mail,
Yeah.
and it was from the Marines. And it was like, send this postcard back for your shiny set of dog tags. Well, I stole that card from my brother and I filled it out and I mailed it in.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was too young. They sent me a official letterhead. They're like, hey, you're too young. Stay in school, stay off drugs. We'll talk to you in a year. When I was 16, they sent me another letter. And when I
Yeah.
was 17, they sent me another letter and a PFT poster. They're like, hey, you're 17, you're old enough to join, get fit, stay in school, stay off drugs. We'll see you when you're ready. And
Nice.
you know, I was ready. Like when I graduated, I was so ready to just go in. And
Hmm.
but how things worked out, there's a 6.5 year split between my older brother and me, and 4.5 years between my sister and me.
Hmm.
And just how things worked out, everybody was about to leave the house within a span of 6 months. And
Oh
I felt
wow.
that that was going to be a massive strain on my mother emotionally. And so
Yeah.
I chose to stay. Like she made me promise that I'd go to college for 2 years, and I literally crossed my fingers behind my back, and I said, I promise I'll go for 2 years. I
That's
made it one, but
pretty
technically,
good. That's pretty good.
well, I only made it one semester before I did delayed entry program. So
Oh, okay.
you
So
know,
you were ready to go though.
I was. I absolutely was. Initially, my plan was to, do the standard thing. I wanted to go infantry. I wanted to get that full experience. But my plan changed along the way.
Yeah.
I went to college. I met this girl,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
yeah, that's how life starts to really
It, it,
change.
it does change things for sure.
And and it changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
Been married to her for 21 years, and
That's awesome.
was very happy that I changed my plan a little bit, because, if you know anything about the military, if you're in the infantry, you're not home a lot. And,
True statement.
and if you want to have like a decent relationship, you need to invest the time, especially
Yeah.
in the very beginning, like when you're growing together.
Hmm.
And so I ended up changing what I was going to go in for. So
Okay.
I I signed up as a musician. I passed the audition, and I was a trombone player. Actually, that's how we met in college.
Yeah.
She was a trombone player. I was
Nice.
a trombone player. We got in a lot of trouble together. It was pretty awesome. Um, by the way, if you if you start a relationship in college, man, be prepared. If you're not really wanting to be there for education, your grades are going to completely tank. So,
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
yeah. So in February of 2001, I I depped in, and my ship date was September 17th of 2001. So
Okay.
some family members were kind of freaking out, because
Yeah.
6 days earlier the towers went down. But
Hmm.
it was my plan to go anyway,
Right.
so it wasn't concerning to me. This was everything I expected it to be. Life is uncertain.
Right.
It's filled with constant change. So
True statement. Yeah.
so I was very happy to head down to Paris Island. Actually, I tried to break up with my girlfriend at the time, because I was like, hey, look, this is going to be really stressful. I don't think, like, we're going to survive this really well. And she just looked at me and she goes, no, you're not breaking up with me. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So this is obviously legit. Like, she's willing to stick around.
Yeah.
Um, and she stuck it out through a lot of crazy stuff. So she
That's
was
awesome.
definitely committed to it. So went down to Paris Island. I was in third recruit training battalion, 3104.
Nice.
Uh, had a pretty great run of it. I grew up in a pretty strict household, so
Hmm.
boot camp wasn't that stressful to me. It was a good challenge. It was fun. Um, I mean, it was difficult. I'm not saying that, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
this was a cakewalk. No, like, no matter where you are physically and mentally, they'll push to find your limits,
Yeah.
which I appreciate about the Marine Corps. I really do.
Yeah. Now,
You
did
know,
you like what were some of the highlights and stuff from boot camp that kind of stood out to you?
so I was flying under the radar in the beginning, and there was a couple guides that had been fired, and then my name got brought to the forefront, and I became guide of the platoon. About halfway through, this was
Yeah.
when we were going through A line, so
Okay.
a lot of suck there, a lot of crawling, a lot of movements in the dirt, and the drill instructors really hadn't asked me what my job was going to be, you
Right.
know, in the Marine Corps until that point. And once I was guide, like, the spotlight was on me, and they found out I was going into the band, and just my quality of life got flushed, man. Like, they were out to get me in a major way, and it was exhilarating. Like, there was a lot of good pain brought, and a lot of
Yeah.
stress that was necessary to prepare me for some of the future.
Right.
So I ended up graduating as the honor graduate, and picked up Lance Corporal at a boot camp, which is a blessing and a curse.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
because the,
amazing. Yeah.
the the military musician contract, you end up sometimes getting a promotion from private to PFC, so E1 to
Hmm.
E2, and then because I was the honor graduate of the platoon, I was meritoriously promoted from E2 to E3. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, like, I just enjoyed it. Like, this is something that I wanted to do, and it's odd because a lot of people thought initially, like, oh, you're going to go the full 20, but I never felt
Hmm.
that way. Like, I never went in saying, I'm going to do 20. This is how it's going to
Right.
be. Like, every time I hit, a reenlistment, it was a conversation with the wife. It was like, okay, are we going to do this again? I don't know.
Hmm.
So anyway, we make it to boot camp graduation, and in all of her letters, my girlfriend at the time was like, I'm not going to make it to graduation. Sorry. But she surprised me. She showed up. It was pretty awesome.
Nice.
Uh, did a little recruiter's assistance after that. Then I went to, what do they call it? Base now? It's like Joint Amphibious Base,
Oh,
Little Creek.
Yeah, it's Joint Amphibious Base Little Creek Fort Story.
Yeah,
So they
like
combine the two bases. Yeah,
it's yeah, it's a mouthful.
it is.
So after Marine combat training, which you know you have a bunch of infantrymen dealing with all the non-infantrymen at MCT, and they
Yeah.
absolutely hated me because you go into the infantry, it's hard to pick up rank, it really is.
Oh yeah.
And I show up as a lance corporal, and I don't have the leadership style that they're looking for. I'm not
Right.
screaming in people's faces and ready to knock people out. And they didn't appreciate me very much. I got some pretty crappy details while I was there.
Oh
Um,
man.
and that's fine. That's the way it goes. Some
Yeah,
some people are not going to like you, and you just have to accept that.
that's true. Yeah.
So
You
that was
you
a
learned it early in your career. That's good.
oh yeah. Uh, so moving from combat training into the School of Music. Um,
Hmm.
my girlfriend was going to college at the time, a couple hours away, so it was pretty close. It was actually good. She came down and visited me. We got engaged there. Um,
Nice.
and then I thought I was going to San Diego after that.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, when you graduate, you're going to go to San Diego. But
Right.
like a week before I was supposed to graduate and execute orders, the Marine Corps did its standard thing and said, "Just kidding. That's not what you're doing. You either have Paris Island or you have Okinawa, and then we'll give you whatever you want on the backside of that."
Yeah.
And so I called my fiance. I'm like, "Look, we don't want to go to Paris Island. That is not where I want to start our marriage, in that swamp."
Yeah.
So I got her to agree that we'd be separated for a year,
Hmm.
and I'd go to Okinawa, and then hopefully they cut me orders to Quantico because I grew up in
Right.
Virginia. I love Virginia. I like having all four seasons.
Yeah.
So the monitor told me, and this was another learning thing, that just because the monitor says something doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Uh, that I would go to Okinawa, and then my orders would be to Quantico on the backside of that.
Right.
In retrospect, I'm really glad that didn't happen, but I was I was sure that this was going to happen and it was going to be good. So left School of Music, flew out to Okinawa. So that was the last quarter of 2002 that I made it
Okay.
out there. What a great adventure, man. Like, so many people struggle with some of those things, like living on a tiny island, or
Yeah.
living in the desert, or all these places that the Marine Corps takes you. But if you live it up, if you go out, you explore, like, see the culture, experience the food and the people, and like take it in, man,
Yeah.
like, what an adventure. And I look back on it and wish I'd done even more than I did.
Yeah.
When I
Tell
joined them, go ahead.
tell us a little bit about your time there, some of those adventures that you actually got to go on.
So I'm pretty sure my friend Ryan Frost. I
Oh
think you've
yeah.
met
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I have,
So
yeah.
Ryan and I were together a lot. Did my first bike packing trip. We bought some really cheap bikes from the PX, and biked like 50 kilometers to the top of the island. And
No kidding.
yeah, we camped out there, and then we went up. Like, when I landed on Okinawa, you go into this program called the Joint Reception Center, and they
Uh-huh.
teach you about the culture, and they teach you the rules of the status of forces agreement that you have when you're
Hmm.
you're overseas. And anyway, while we were there, a typhoon hit, just as I had come on the island, and they locked everybody down. But right after that, some Marines were up there on Hito Point, which is the very north point of the island, and
Hmm.
they got swept out to sea. Like,
Oh
this,
wow.
yeah, the swells came in and sucked them out, and they were pulling every diver on the island to go dive grid squares and try to find their bodies. I don't think that they
Holy
actually
cow.
ever did. So lost like
Mm.
3 Marines to that.
Okay.
But to actually go up there and see where it happened, when you're standing
Yeah.
at the top of that coral cliff,
Hmm.
you don't think the ocean can touch you, man. It's like 100 and some feet down. And then you're
Yeah.
just sitting there, and the swells are hitting the coral and coming up, and it's coming up a little higher. And all of a sudden it's there. And this is like sea condition green, so it's really calm. So if it was sea
Yeah.
condition red right after a typhoon, man, whoo, like, they didn't stand a chance. They didn't know it, you know.
Wow. Now how tall did you say that was about?
probably 100, 150 feet down.
No kidding. Dang.
Yeah, it was impressive. But anyway, I went bike packing. I got my dive license while I was there.
Nice.
Ironically enough, like I didn't really know how to swim as a city kid. Maybe I got a chance to swim once a year
Yeah.
at a pool, but didn't know how to actually swim. So I barely survived swim qual and boot camp, and every other swim qual after that until I started diving. Like moving through the water actually taught me how to swim. So like it's kind of
Oh,
backwards.
nice.
Like you really should know how to swim before you get your dive license, but you
Yeah,
know,
but you have your fins and stuff like that to help propel you. It kind of gives you a little bit, I guess, a better example of what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah, you actually feel what it's supposed to feel like moving through the
Yeah.
water. I mean, I had to tread water for 5 minutes to get the dive license, and that was like almost a death sentence because I just didn't know how to handle my body. It was pretty
Yeah.
pathetic. I figured it out later, but man, that was sharp learning curve. I
Yeah.
got my dive license while I was there. Like we had a small brass band that went out and played in town on the weekends.
Nice.
By the way, if you ever get an opportunity to play in a bar and somebody asks you if you want to play for beer or play for money, you should definitely play for beer because you're going to spend way more money on beer than you're going to get paid. So you might as well
Yeah.
just get the beer for free, man. We made a terrible financial mistake in the first place that
Oh,
we were
no
playing on
kidding.
Saturday nights, but then we picked up a Friday night gig and then we just played for beer, and that was
Yeah.
way smarter. So we weren't losing money playing a gig. So
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
no, it was
Did
good
now did you
times.
go did you go play at the and I don't remember the name of the guy that he owned a bar and as long as you brought him Budweiser, he'd let you come in and drink and do whatever if you wanted to play music or whatever. He was a piano player as well. I cannot remember the guy's name.
No, I don't know that one. So
Yeah.
Friday night gigs were at Molly Goodhead's, and we'd always drink them out of Corona. Saturday night gigs were at Patty Mac's on BC Street, and
Okay.
like we always spent way more money on Irish beer than we got paid. And then sometimes we'd show up at Jack Nasty's and play with their house band. Um,
Okay.
oh man, I could tell you stories about that guy for a while. Like Jack Nasty was like Ozzy Osbourne and Aerosmith if he was Okinawan, you know. Like
Nice.
dude, incredible stuff happened there. Just crazy stuff. So I hit Guam, Saipan, Thailand, and mainland Japan while I was in Okinawa. I
That's pretty good.
didn't get on the rotation where they went down to Australia. I missed out on that.
Yeah.
And I think my one regret from Okinawa is it's not my fault. As soon as I picked up corporal while I was there, I immediately requested to go to corporal's course, and they said no. And then they sent a batch of us to corporal's course, but they did it right when the rest of the unit got the opportunity to go to Iwo Jima. So
Oh, you missed out on that.
yeah,
Oh
I didn't
man.
get to go to Iwo Jima because they sent me to corporal's course, which I was very upset
Yeah.
about that. I mean, thankfully my fire team leader brought me back some of the volcanic sand and I still have
Yeah.
it. But
But that's an iconic ceremony to do is out there on Iwo Jima.
yeah, that was painful to miss that. You
Yeah.
know, and as far as I know, they're not even doing that ceremony anymore. Nobody's going
Oh,
to the island. I,
oh,
I
I don't
heard,
know. I haven't heard that.
or
I
maybe
don't
they
keep
just,
up with it, but
yeah. But any of that information is probably a couple decades old at this point. So like my son's
yeah.
thinking about going into the Corps and he's asking me some stuff. And I'm like, you realize any information I give you about boot camp is like 25 years old at this point. Like it's not going to be like that.
It may be close and it may not. Yeah, you
Yeah.
never know.
Don't
Yeah.
forget to take out your trash cans.
So that's Okinawa.
Yeah.
So it was a hard fight. A typhoon hit right before I left. So I had like bookend typhoons, one when I first got there and one as I was leaving. And I didn't think I was actually going to make it off the island. And at that point, like, you know, I was engaged, my wedding was scheduled, and I'm like, I
Oh yeah.
couldn't get my orders from IPAC. Nobody was answering my emails or calls.
Yeah.
They weren't, I guess they weren't sure of when to actually book the port call because they weren't sure if anybody was going to make it off the island.
Right.
And so I couldn't book another flight. I probably could have, but I was a young kid. didn't really know how to navigate all that stuff at that time. And so, I got my orders. The plane almost crashed getting off of Okinawa to mainland Japan.
Oh my God.
Like it landed in mainland Japan and it hopped sideways a couple times because the crosswind from the typhoon blowing through was so high.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to die. I'm not even going to make it to my own wedding. So I flew back to the
That's
States.
crazy.
And at this point, when I went to IPAC to get my orders on Okinawa, the gunny looked at me and he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to get married and then I'm going to drive. And he's like, well, you're going to 29 Palms. And I'm like, I thought I was going to Quantico. And he's like, no, you're going to 29 Palms. And if you're getting married, my suggestion to you is make sure you drive in at night with your brand new wife, because all the lights are on and it makes it look bigger and it won't be as depressing. And I thought he was joking, but thank God we did show up when it was dark and the lights were on and it looked a little bit better. But that wasn't because I planned it that way. Just more changes in life happens.
Right.
So flew back to the States, bought a car, drove to Pennsylvania, got married, packed her stuff up into a truck, and we drove out to 29 Palms. And we deviated along the way, made a good road trip out of it, and
Nice.
arrived in the desert. And for a sheltered kid from Virginia, I didn't know there was desert like that in America.
Yeah.
That was pretty shocking to me, to just see the barren wasteland out west. And
yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially if you've never been around it.
You can grow to love it if you're there.
Yeah.
I think actually stationed there. But if you're just there for like a CAX, combined arm exercise, or
Oh yeah, miserable.
what did they call it later? It was
CAX.
Well, after CAX, it became Mojave Viper, and then it became something else after that. Anyway, like a lot of people have terrible stories about Camp Wilson and they hate 29 Palms. But that's because there's just a lot of tomfoolery that happens when you're trying to simulate war in an American desert. But living out there, like you can see things. It was kind of cool. Man. So since I got married between the two duty stations, they didn't have any housing for me. And I ended up living in the ghetto of the desert. There is one, I promise you.
You found it?
Yes. We lived right across from the break and run billiards out on the main highway. And
that's a lot of ways out though.
It was. We couldn't really find, and the apartment was so tiny that the swamp cooler that we had would blow sand across our dining room table and in onto the couch in the living room. Like it was just everything was so compact. And it was a set of apartments that were really close together. And man, we had some crazy neighbors, just crazy. Actually, I heard from another Marine I was working with who was living out in town there that about half the block got arrested right after we moved on to base.
Yeah.
So they did make some changes there. Some of the people I thought might have been a little bit suspicious probably were. So I spent a couple years in 29 Palms, and I just wasn't sure what I was going to do when I hit the end of that enlistment. And so I ended up re-enlisting in the band, and then kind of immediately regretted that decision. And a fellow sergeant came to me at the time, like she was shooting for the Marine Corps rifle team, and she's like, "Hey, I met this guy. He's in EOD. I think you might be interested in doing this job. You should go talk to him." So I went and I talked to him. And I was like, all right, this is really interesting. I want to do this. Now, the sad part of this story is when I did lap move, I had already re-enlisted. So I missed out on a massive re-enlistment bonus for that.
That
job. The thing is, it wasn't ever about the money. I just needed to do something else. Like after being at 29 Palms and playing all of those arrivals and departures and seeing people, I felt like my Marine Corps experience was passing me by. I felt like I wasn't doing enough for America, I guess. And like it was just eating at me really deeply. And so I made the lap move into EOD mid 05. And then we moved down to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, where EOD school was. And that was about 9-10 months of pretty intense training.
The
Um,
school is 9 or 10 months.
yeah, like,
Wow.
well, I
No
mean,
kidding.
yeah, there's a variety of subjects that you have to learn before you can build up to like the first time you actually work a problem, like you were going to
Right.
do the job. And so you have to go through and learn things about how ordnance is built and what the safeties are and how things
Mm-hmm.
arm and like what are the precautions that you need to take. How do you
Right.
research this ordnance? Because every country around the world's making bombs of different
Yeah.
types, and you have to be able to recon it safely, to figure out what it is, to figure out
Right.
how it works, to know like how to take care of it. And
That
so
makes sense. Yeah.
it's a real knowledge game. And I'm not going to misquote the statistic, but it's an insane attrition rate
I would
in that
imagine so.
school. So it the Marine Corps is the only service that doesn't pipeline people into EOD from boot camp. All the other services have kids that are coming in straight out, and I think the Marine Corps does it right because you have this eclectic group of NCOs. So when
Mm-hmm.
I lat moved in, the base rank for EOD is sergeant, and so
Oh,
you
wow.
had to be an E5 to even make that lat move. They did
Wow.
lower it to E4 for a while during the plus up, because EOD basically doubled in size right after I joined its ranks because the whole IED threat in Iraq and
Oh,
Afghanistan,
yeah.
and later in Afghanistan, but more so in Iraq, it was the main problem in that war. And so like it just a lot of people. So base rank is sergeant. Everybody's coming in with a different skill set,
Right.
and um, and that's advantageous. I felt really behind the power curve because you don't really need a musician skill set to help you. But when you have other people who are, they're grunts, they're comm guys, they're
Yeah.
logistics guys, like all of these things come together, and you end up working in small teams and need that. So
Yeah.
I had to humble myself and learn a lot more about the Marine Corps very rapidly because my time in the band, I just felt like I could have eternally partied forever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I get to play music and then I get to go drink after that, and then I get up and I do it again. And
Yeah.
like, you're not learning all of those other skills and things that you're going to need later. Um,
True.
so, so I had to humble myself and ask a lot of questions that made me look stupid. But you know, if you want to know and you want to play the game, man, you better figure it out. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it though. And at EOD school is, you got a lot of things that could go wrong. So you better ask questions. You better make sure you know what the heck is going on.
yeah, well, I mean, it's man, the pace of that school is insane.
Hmm.
Everybody uses the analogy drinking from a fire hose, but
Yeah.
this this man, like every couple of days there was a test, and if you fail that test, you
Jeez.
get one more opportunity to take that test, or they roll you back, and you
Oh,
get maybe
wow.
one rollback before you get kicked out of the school. So it's
Dang.
you either learn to do
Hmm.
the job quickly or you don't make it. And there's
Yeah.
a reason for that because in this job, if you don't get it right, like you're not going to have a job because you might not be there.
True.
And the school's motto was initial success or total failure. And
Ooh.
that mindset really works well for the EOD community.
Hmm.
I will say, if you flash forward to your life outside of EOD and outside of the
Hmm.
military, that phraseology does not play out well in your personal life, and people continue to live that way, and it really eats at them.
Yeah.
So like when you look at how you actually live your life, like initial success or total failure binds you up
Hmm.
into the analysis paralysis because not everything's as easy as this is how this works, and it's going
Yeah.
to do this because it's a mechanical device or an electronic device, and you can do this and this to defeat it. it
Right.
doesn't it doesn't work in real life because people are unpredictable, situations constantly changing, and you just don't know how things are going to go. And so I see a lot of people struggling because they're still trying to hold on to that mantra, and it's like, man,
Right.
your out life changed, you have to adapt and overcome
Yeah.
that. By the way, love the whole change your socks thing. Like I didn't get it until way later, but man,
It's important.
it's more important than people give it credit for. Like it will change your outlook on your day to put on a dry pair of socks.
That is a
It
true
it,
statement.
it really, really will. And I think maybe I'm more cognizant of my feet now. Like that's later in the story, but I've had both of them surgically reconstructed, and
Eesh.
so I'm
Yeah.
constantly thinking about my feet. So EOD school.
Yeah.
I graduated EOD school and ended up going to my first duty station in Indian Head, Maryland. It's a naval surface warfare center,
Oh,
home
okay.
home of one of the most bastardized battalions that exist. You know, normally in a battalion, everybody's doing about the same job. You know,
Right.
like this battalion is organized based off of this job, and it will deploy to do that job. No,
Right.
Seaburf was a bastard child of the Marine Corps. I don't think they ever should have owned it, but it's Chemical Biological Incident Response Force, and
Okay.
it was stood up, I think, in the late 90s under 4th MEB anti-terrorism.
Mm.
So if you know, fourth anything is reserve,
Yeah.
and so the Marine Expeditionary Brigade, and then it kind of got shifted, and it was down in Georgia, I think. I don't know. You don't care about the history, and I don't either. So they moved it up to Indian Head, Maryland, and there was like 51 different MOSs under one roof in this battalion because
Wow.
you had everything in there, and it really made for a strange culture
Mm-hmm.
because you know everybody's trying to figure out how to work with each other, and they're coming from different leadership backgrounds, and nobody's really sure how this battalion's supposed to work because it's not really Marine Corps. You know,
Yeah.
it's just we had actual naval surgeons on staff. We had like civilian chemists on staff, like, and everybody in between. There was two major companies of grunts. They were the line companies. They were the body draggers and the searchers. You know, and you had com and EOD and tech rescue and all of these people doing all of these things. Really,
That's crazy.
it should have been owned by Tech Escort in the Army because Tech Escort's already doing all that chem bio stuff. So I don't
Right.
know why they gave it to the Marine Corps. And then the Marine Corps doesn't have anything in its supply system to do this job. So everything's getting contracted out, and it was just this
Yeah.
huge boondoggle waste of money. And somebody will see this someday and call me and be like, "You're wrong," blah blah blah. That's fine. I just saw it as a massive waste. Like it was a sick joke between the infantry guys because they'd go there and it felt like an eternal workup with no deployment. And they're like, "Oh man, let me call my buddy and tell him, hey, like, you know, you should come here. You should do this because it's like a break. It's a break, man. You don't have to deploy, but it's not a break. It's like terrible because the companies rotate who's on duty, and you'll get these recalls because you know you're on standby for a lot of things. Like we'd go to the National Capital Region and sit there for like the State of the Union address and for other things.
Oh, no
I was
kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I was there in the Capitol when Obama was inaugurated. Like it was 17 degrees and that place was packed out, and we were there just in case there was some type of chemical biological response that happened during it. So we were
Right.
staged all over the place. And
That,
oh man,
I guess I never really think about that aspect of everything, but you're right. I mean, you're there, and if all goes well, you never used.
yeah, it's nice to not be used, but at the same time, you feel so trapped because you've trained hard for
Mm.
this job and you never do it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it
It's
was a
kind
special
of
place.
messes with your mind, you know?
So it was my first EOD station, and we arrived there. My wife was quite a few months pregnant. We had our first kid there,
Okay.
and then we had two subsequent children while we were there, all born at Andrews Air Force Base. So I had all three of my
Wow.
kids at one duty station.
That's nice.
Yeah, like we were like, it was supposed to be 1, 2, wait a few years, 3, 4, but we had one,
Yeah.
two, surprise 3, and so that was that we were like, we're gonna put a cap on it. Like 3 right now is good to go.
Yeah.
So the monitor had called me and was like, "Hey, like I know you guys are expecting a kid. Do you want to move down to Lejeune and have your kid there, or do you want to have your kid where you are?" And then PCS down to Lejeune. And so at this point, I had re-enlisted again, and we were like, all right, we're gonna have the kid, and then we'll move down there. So we had our third child, and then 2 weeks later, I think it was 10 days, we PCS'd down to Camp Lejeune.
Wow. So you're PCSing with a newborn, your other two kids, your wife just had the baby. That's got to be fun.
It was a lot of stress, man. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is packed up, and you're having a newborn, but it's like, okay, we got to keep these supplies out of the boxes and don't let TMO take them.
Yeah.
And then, everything else is gone. So we're in a house with virtually nothing.
Yeah. They don't make it easy on you sometimes.
Well, that's why people say, if the Corps wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. Like it is a challenging thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's challenges in both directions. Like if you have a massive group of single Marines, like it's a challenge in a different way. And it's good to have married people mixed in that can help provide some of that family stability for a lot of these young guys who are stressed out and separated from their families. So here's where the story starts to get a little crazy.
All right.
So moved to Lejeune, and at this point I'm a staff sergeant.
Okay.
And then like I'm there, and in the first 2 months I get selected for gunny.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, I go to the company commander. I'm like, hey, look, I know there's this upcoming deployment, and now there's some combat replacements that are needed. Like I need to deploy. Like I can't pin on E7 and not have a deployment as an EOD tech. Right. So he's like, all right, we're plugging you in there. So I had my kid's maybe 2.5 months old, and I'm deploying as a combat replacement to Afghanistan. So my wife is left in Lejeune in a brand new place with 3 kids in diapers, and I'm gone. So
man, she's a champ.
She is. My wife is amazing. So like all the respect in the world to Misty, my wife. I love you, babe. Like you've been through a lot. And I'm still putting her through a lot of difficult things.
It happens. What are you gonna do, man?
Yeah. So we deploy. This was July, the very beginning of July in 2009.
Okay.
And now it's like, how do I tell this story? How do we work through this? So we show up. We don't even have a unit that we're assigned to yet, and we already run an IED call right outside the base. Then we had to leapfrog across a couple of places to make it down because we got there late. We weren't falling in with the unit that we were going to be attached to. They did a helo insert into the southern part of Helmand at that point. This was Echo 28. Like if you want to see basically live footage of that deployment, go look up the movie To Hell and Back Again.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
I've seen parts of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So that was my deployment.
Wow.
Like I avoided the cameras like the plague, but I was there. My teammates in the movie. But so we drove down, met up with some guys from our company. When EOD deploys, you don't stay with your unit. You get farmed out by teams of like 2 guys, 3 guys at a time.
So you just basically go to a different units within the AO, and then okay.
Yeah. So at this time, like things were really spread thin. So it was like 1 EOD team per infantry company. So you had like 1 company covering like an AO. Everything was really spread thin at that point. And there's 1 EOD team in that AO. So thankfully we did have a truck. If we had done the helo insert with them, we wouldn't even had a truck, which means we wouldn't have had a lot of assets.
Wow.
Maybe it would have gotten down there later, but if you want to use robots, if you want to use certain tools, like there's a lot to carry. And
Yeah.
so we drove down there. Our truck was just stuff hanging all over it because we knew we were going to be bringing some stuff to these guys. So it looked like the Clampets and Beverly Hillbillies,
Nice.
just stuff hanging off all the sides of it. And we get down there, and another strong learning curve. You know, like
Yeah.
you're meeting people that you're going to be working with for the first time in combat situations. And
Right.
so one of the things you'll find, like, there's that hard line between infantry and persons other than grunts,
Yeah.
pogues, right? And so EOD is decidedly a pogue until you get to know these people. Like, some of EOD in the Marine Corps were infantry prior, like
Yeah.
Tony, the teammate that I had. He
Mhm.
was a tow gunner before he went EOD.
Okay.
But then you got guys like me who were in the band and then just show up,
Mhm.
and now we're there. So you kind of have to earn your place. Like, you're looked at this,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you're looked at like a tag along until you pull their ass out of a sling. Like, when
Yeah.
they're in a tight spot and you finally come and do your job for them,
Mhm.
suddenly everything's different, and like, they love you at that point. It's like, okay, yeah, like, you're cool, you're one of us. Thank you
Right.
for not letting me blow up. But you find that later when you go on other deployments, that's reset because these grunts don't know
Mhm.
you, and you're just a worthless pogue again. You know, so it's
Yeah.
like every time you've got to show up and perform for them to go, all right, you might be worth
Yeah.
something. I'll allow it. You can be
But
here.
that's a huge pain in the butt, though, to not be part of the unit, show up, and now you got to prove yourself to the unit for them to accept you. You know, that's tough, and you have to do it over and over everywhere you go.
Yeah. I mean, once people have worked with you, it's usually the younger Marines that have a
Yeah.
problem with you. When you get in, and like the sergeants, staff sergeants, all the officers, they're like, oh yeah, we know who you are and why you're here. Thank you. We
Yeah.
we need you. But the younger kids are like, get out of here, punk. Like, you're not one of us. And rightly so. Like, we haven't suffered with them. Like, one of the
Right.
universal truths I pulled out of my time in service was, like, community bonds are built very tightly through shared suffering.
Hmm.
And if you haven't been in that shared suffering, like, you're an outsider. Like, it's not the same at all.
True.
And even if you suffered in one way, if you didn't suffer with this group, it's apples to oranges, man. It's not the same. You're
Yeah.
not going to be there. Um, so it was a busy deployment.
Hmm.
You know, I lost a good friend while I was over there.
Hmm.
Dave Spicer was with me at Seabirth, and then he went down
Okay.
to second company at Lejeune like a year
Hmm.
before I did. And then, like, I saw him for the last time, I think a month and a half before he was killed.
Mm.
And yeah,
No,
I'm still,
he wasn't in your AO though. He was in another AO or
yeah, he was part of a route clearance platoon.
okay.
At least I think they were doing that at that point. Like, it was really confusing. Like, when the call first came in, you know, there's no identifying information. I think they
Right.
had maybe sent out a kill number. Everybody had a kill number, but um, I didn't get the full number, so I didn't know uh, who was hit.
Right.
And I found out later. My wife was able to attend the funeral in Arlington,
Oh wow.
but you know, it happened while we were deployed. Like, I had
Yeah.
it took me a couple years to get back and finally make it up there and say my goodbyes.
Right.
It's not an easy thing. I think maybe you should ask me a few questions about this, because I don't
Okay, yeah,
know.
that's cool.
Yeah,
So typically when you're deployed as EOD, how often are you going out?
daily.
Going on a call daily. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes multiple times a day. Occasionally there was a lull where, like, we didn't have a call because it was only one team and there was multiple patrols out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was going to an area we knew that had a lot of IEDs, then we would leave with that patrol.
Okay.
But if we had people going in multiple directions and we weren't sure, we'd stay centralized on the COP. We were on Combat Outpost Sharp. Sharp was a Lance Corporal who was killed in the initial invasion, like in that helo assault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And later they renamed it. Some officer probably got a Bronze Star for renaming all of the outposts in that AO or that overall region with Pashtun names. So it changed to like Shamir or something like that. But everybody called it Cop Sharp because like
as it should be.
Yeah, like I understand it was such a weird thing, right? Because since we're in their country, I'm when we all right, I'll back up a little bit, right? When we got there, they had been off the helo for a couple days, maybe, and there was no berms, there was no concertina wire, there was nothing. There was like 3 machine gun posts on the corner of a cornfield, and like people just patrolling around.
Yeah.
And so it was, you were on alert. Now, like a week later, the engineers showed up, and rather than building up the force protection, they kind of dug the cornfield down, and so like you could be walking.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was not great. So like our walls were sort of high, but not high enough. Like eventually, the engineers got tired of getting shot at, and they left before they finished our force protection. They bailed on us. A little bit of heartburn there.
Well, that was nice of them. Yeah, just a little bit.
But you get the infantry kids with some shovels, and they keep filling up all the HESCO barriers until things are done, and we're stringing wire and building stuff the entire time we're there. So there was like OP north, south, east, and west. Like we don't need fancy names. And so there'd be satellite patrols out of each of these OPs per day. They were trying to make these connections with everybody in the local area. There was a market right outside the combat outpost, but not long after we got there, the Taliban beat everybody mercilessly if they tried to keep their shop open. So that whole place became a ghost town after a while because the Taliban did not want them associating with us. They don't want to allow us to bring peace and stability. They wanted to be in control of the area. And so there's just a real push-pull with the people. And it was kind of the example. All right, so we get into a really bad day. The Air Force drops some bombs for us. But once again, nothing ever goes to plan, right? So they released 4 bombs for us. 3 made it to target, but only 1 detonated, and 1 went completely erratic, and it fell on the other side of the COP. And we had to go find this thing. And so we end up finding it in this guy's, like it plowed in through his driveway. And we dug a huge hole until we could find evidence that the bomb was actually there. And then, we're like, all right, that nobody's going to get this back. Like, do you really want us to waste the time? But the Air Force wanted us to retrieve the guidance package and the fuse. And we're like, okay, so we're going to either need this massive list of explosives or you're going to send some heavy equipment to dig this guy's potato field up. Because based on the trajectory of release from the aircraft and its flight to target, it hit here and it's underneath there. But you really have no, it's such a difficult thing to estimate how far it would have gone, because like you don't know soil densities, like what was the actual speed. I mean, the weight of the bomb at terminal velocity when it impacted, like
there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, there's a real guesstimation that's happening, and we're like, we think it's right about here. And the Air Force was like, well, no way we're going to send you any heavy equipment. Here's a massive bundle of explosives. And we had padded the list because it was hard to get our explosives from the Marine Corps, because the Marine Corps is poor. They're like, we don't have that to give you, sorry. But the Air Force does, so that we made sure that list was very well padded out. And then a couple of days later, here comes a CH-53 flying in. sling load over 1,000 pounds NEW of high explosives underneath the bird. I'm not sure they knew what was on the bottom of them, but they were not flying
Probably not.
into friendly territory, and they dropped this stuff off. And man, we destroyed that dude's potato field. We made it into a swimming pool.
Wow.
So anyway, we go back, and civil affairs is with us, and they're like, hey, we want to pay you for the crop. We want to help this. And he's like, I don't want your money. And we're like, okay, well, we have heavy equipment, like, because they had some engineers that were going to come in and bulldoze things. And
Right.
civil affairs was just offering them things. We didn't actually have a bulldozer at that point. And he's like, no, I've got a tractor. I'll fill it in. And we're like, well, sir, how do we compensate you for the destruction of your entire crop and, turning your front yard into a swimming pool? Because it was right next to the canal. So when we hit it, the water table came up into the hole.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And he was like, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to leave. He's like, yeah, you don't need to be in this country. Like, the Taliban is here fighting you because you're here. If you leave, they'll stop fighting. And so, human exploitation.
It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. The human exploitation team's there, and the guy's asking him questions like, well, so who's Taliban around here? And he's like, well, everybody. And we're like, okay. So, like, what does that mean? He's like, well, when the Taliban is here and you're not, everybody's Taliban. And now that you're here, we're not Taliban anymore. But when you leave and the Taliban's in control, we'll be Taliban again.
Yeah.
They're just trying to live their life, man. Like, they want to be left alone to farm the ground and not have their families messed with. And like, it took me another decade, I think, to process some of the stuff that had happened while I was over there. And I started to frame it like I had seen part of Red Dawn or something. And I'm thinking, like, what if, there's a bunch of soldiers in my town telling me I can't walk down my street to go to my house because he has to control this area. Like, we went out for an IED call, and there was a lot of stuff going on. There was some confusion. A local slipped through the security and was in the middle of my scene when I'm trying to do something. And I'm like, you need to go. And he's trying to walk down the road, which is in the middle of it. And I'm like, you can't walk down the road. You've got to go back. And he's not moving at all. And so I'm like, I call for the translator. The translator's busy. Like, there was very few translators. So they're like, just deal with it. And so, like,
just deal with it.
I raise my rifle up and I point with it. I'm like, you need to go. But the thing is that all of those people living down there, they've never known peace. They grew up in war. And so,
that's a good point.
Seeing a rifle, they're like, I don't care. Like, like, that doesn't affect me at all. And I'm like, well, I can't shoot this guy, but he can't be here because I'm not going to do any work on this and have him watch me. So, like, eventually I just muzzle thumped him in the chest, and he's like, all right, fine, whatever, I'll leave. And he walked back the other way, but he was always steely faced, just staring me down. And I thought about that later. I'm like, you know what? That I would be the exact same way. Like, who are you telling me I can't walk through my own neighborhood to get to my house, which is right there? Like, we get upset when there's a construction crew and they're not going to let you through. Like, dude, my house is right there. Just let me go.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could handle it, if that happened here, and it'd be tough. It'd be real tough.
Yeah, when you start to reverse the roles and think about it for a minute, you're like, man, this is hard to process and deal with. Like, if it was my house and people were shooting my house up because some people I didn't even like were hanging out in my house to hide, and then my kids are getting shot at, and like my food supply is getting trashed, and oh man, like, you learn a lot about humanity in a very short amount of time, seeing some of the dark, twisted things that they'll do to each other. We got a call to search this guy's house because we were told he was Taliban.
Yeah.
He wasn't. After we trashed his whole compound and then talked to him, he's like, I told you I'm not Taliban. It's like, well, we got direct intel that you were. He's like, well, who told you? And the guy said, whatever the dude's name was. He goes, oh, that's my neighbor. He hates me. Like, and so his neighbor was just basically swatting him, if you will, like Afghanistan style. So the worst part about it is, like, because we're in their compound, these young Marines have seen the women in his family, which is like a direct offense. Like, it's
Oh
not like they
yeah.
were uncovered or anything, but they weren't like, it's totally different. You
Yeah.
don't see the women. That's not okay. And so like, it was a huge, and when you're there trying to win hearts and minds and actually build community relations to help stabilize the area,
Yeah.
that's
It
really
doesn't help.
counterproductive. No.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah.
So
And how long was your deployment while you were there?
since we were combat replacements, it was actually shorter. We were there for
Okay.
like just inside of 6 months.
Okay.
But like, it was nonstop 6 months, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And
a lot of things
I
happened.
just want to kind of put something in perspective for myself. When you're going out just about daily, sometimes multiple times a day, and you're diffusing bombs or you're doing those types of things, your life is on the line every single time you do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's mentally in your psyche, that's got to mess with you quite a bit.
Later, usually
Okay.
not so much in the moment. Like, the people that I worked with in EOD, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't fully understand what draws people to it, but like, they've actually done some studies. Like, when we go to do our work, like, you get into this zone and your heart rate actually drops,
Oh,
and
wow.
you're calm and you're just solving the problem in that moment. It's not
Right.
this high stress thing, because at the end of the day, you either do it right or it's not your problem anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you're usually not around. You're either waking up in Germany because you got medevaced out, or you're dead, and it's not your
Right.
problem. And so, you know, you just take it one step at a time. All right, we're going to go through our procedures. We're going to do this, and we're going to make it happen. The thing that makes that a little more chaotic is when it's happening in the middle of active combat. So that
Oh, yeah.
does change things a little bit. Definitely, you know, you're shortening wait times, and you're making things move as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happened there that I look back on and realize, like, for some odd reason, God still wants me alive,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
over and over and over, I should not be, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like, a couple feet this way, a couple feet that way. You
Right.
know, if this thing had been changed, like, I wouldn't be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, a silly story, if you will. We were out in the middle of this open desert area, and we're trying to take care of an IED that was found up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't. You're behind the truck because these armored trucks provide good cover from blast fragmentation and other
Right.
things. But behind the truck, I couldn't get a good enough signal with the robot. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to climb up into the cab so I can get a better signal to the robot and drive it where I need it to go. And I had the controller in one hand, and I'm lifting up on the door, and my hand slipped down and it grabbed the handle. Now, these doors are so heavy, they're actually pneumatically or hydraulically shut. I can't remember which one it was. And so this
Okay.
thing starts to auto close on my leg,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's like compressing my knee. And I'm, you know, time slows down. And you're like, yep, this is it. My deployment is going to end because a door blew my knee out. And somehow, like, miraculously, the Lance Corporal jumps over the radio console, and this thing's not easy to get over. And he managed
Yeah.
to smash that handle and open the door back up. I mean, my knee swelled up some, but, you know, able to keep
Holy cow.
operating.
Man.
One of the few times I actually felt fear in the deployment, like legitimate fear, was during that
Yeah.
call, because I had to walk down there and take care of stuff. Like, you end up doing a lot of things by hand just by the nature of the job.
Yeah.
The robots can't dig through a lot of that hardened ground. I broke the robot
Mm.
repeatedly while we were there. But as I'm walking out to go deal with this thing, one of these ginormous dogs, like the dogs in Afghanistan, are like, they're like mini ponies, man. They're huge. They can barely afford to feed their families, but somehow those dogs find something to eat.
Yeah, they're eating
And
something.
the scary thing is, like, everybody's like, we got you, man. We're good. But the problem is, like, there's a guy on a DMR, there's a guy on an M4, and there's a guy on a Mark 19, all wanting to shoot this dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I'm walking towards the dog. The dog's walking towards me. Can you not can you not shoot the Mark 19 at least? You know, like,
Yeah.
um, it just, thankfully the dog looked at me and was like, nah, and then walked off. But like, you know, you just know there's a bunch of excited people behind you that it's like, let's go, let's do this.
Itching.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, how useful are the robots for you guys?
It really depends on the environment. Like
Yeah.
some environments have so much electromagnetic radiation, you can't get a good signal. The robot doesn't have much distance, and it's ineffective. A
Hmm.
lot of times it's ineffective because you can't drive a truck everywhere. Like
Yeah.
a lot of these places, like they don't have the infrastructure to drive a 70-ton armored truck through.
Right.
We destroyed their roads driving that truck on
Oh
them.
wow.
It ended up breaking it down to soft sand over the months that we were there. We actually almost lost the truck in the canal because the road gave way at one point. And the only thing
Oh
that
my
saved it
God.
from flipping in and killing our gunner was the transfer cases got caught on the side there. And so the truck was stuck there
Wow.
overnight, just teetering on
Hmm.
the transfer cases.
Holy cow.
But they did send a record the next day, and they managed to pull our truck out. I bought a case of beer for that record crew when we got back to the States.
Yeah.
Oh man. Um,
And that now, I mean, you obviously saw a lot of stuff on that deployment for sure. Uh, you know, at that point, you did 6 months, 7 months while you were there.
yeah.
Uh, Now, when you came back, when did it start affecting you, mentally speaking?
So it was affecting me before I'd even left. Like the hard part
Oh,
is
okay.
when you fly out and then you go back to the main base. Like now you're
Hmm.
turning in. You left all your explosives behind. The team that took your place, they've got all your gear and stuff, and then you show up to the main base and you download all your weapons, and then you've got to carry around an unloaded weapon for
Mm,
some reason. And it's like I'm in
yeah,
this huge base. I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm ineffective,
right.
and I can hear this stuff going on, outside.
Mm,
Like Marines are training, other things are happening, and it's like I'm completely useless in this moment. I'm trapped,
right.
and but you still can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. It's not home. Like
Hmm.
the connectivity was terrible then. So
Yeah.
you waited in a 30-minute long line to get into the internet cafe to wait another 30 minutes for it to boot up your email for you to send a message home. Uh,
Yeah.
but you feel like completely trapped, and then they're trying to do de-escalation. They're trying to
Hmm.
calm people down. And they're like, hey, this is your time to just relax, to decompress. And every time they said that, it just made me madder and madder, and like
Oh,
this
wow.
anger was welling within me.
Hmm.
uh, and so I got back to the States, and before we went on post deployment leave, they were like, all right, here's your next assignments, so you guys know what you're doing when you come back in a month.
Hmm.
And I was assigned to go out on the next Marine Expeditionary Unit, and I was like,
Okay.
good. I was like, good. I want to keep working. I want to go. Let's do this. And I'd go on leave for 30 days. It's good to be with the family, but it's a surreal feeling. Like we got back
Hmm.
a day or 2 days before Thanksgiving, and you're just
Oh,
sitting there
wow.
at your own house, and you're like, this doesn't feel real,
Hmm.
like none of this felt real. And to be a little bit deeper at this point, like during the deployment, there usually comes a point where you're like, I can't feel anything. I have to turn off my emotions so that they don't betray me in critical moments. And we had a really, really bad day. And I got back, and it was my turn to use a satellite phone, and I got to call the wife, and that was a real mistake. I should not have called her that night because I was
Yeah.
already in an emotionally distraught state, and like I could feel it breaking in. And like
Hmm.
the guys saw me struggling when I came back to our hooch, and they're like, dude, what's up? I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. Like, but at that moment, I made that agreement with myself that I wasn't going to feel anything else.
Yeah.
You're just like, no, I'm done. Like, I can't allow myself to be vulnerable in this moment or
Right.
any other time. And so when I got home, I still couldn't feel anything.
Hmm.
And when I looked at my kids, they looked like my kids, but I felt
Yeah.
nothing. I felt nothing for them. And that was the most frightening thing, because it's like,
Yeah.
well, you could be somebody else's kid. I don't know. And so I spent the next 10 years telling myself over and over, you love these kids. This is your kid. You love them.
Right.
But I didn't feel it for the longest time.
Mm.
I mean, there was a lot of things that were red flags, but when you're in it, you don't see it as much, and you're self-medicating, just trying to make it through the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So got off post-deployment leave, come back, and they're like, hey, you've been fired. I'm like, I haven't been here. How are you going to fire me? And they're like, oh, well, these people that are in the admin section, they need to deploy. So they're going to take your place on the MU, and you're going to go run the admin section and the classified section.
On the MU?
No, for the
Oh.
company. So I'm the admin chief of the company now, and I absolutely hate my life. I despise paperwork.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of it there.
Yeah. And so I became an administrator for almost a year.
Ooh.
And it was probably, I would have rather been deployed, man. Like, it was a miserable year of my life. And I was running, the admin section and the classified section, and trying to bounce back and forth and find the people to run it. And the company was a mess, because like when we got back, they had just immediately sent another crew over there to deploy. And then, there's also multiple Marine Expeditionary Unit teams that are separated from the company, and they're going to deploy. And so it was just a constant swirl of people. Anyway, I finally made it out of that, and then got onto the next MU. Like, we were doing the workups and things, and then we ended up deploying like 2.5 months earlier than we were supposed to, because of the whole Libya thing in 2011.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so ironically, like, you hear all these people, they're like, oh, you can't see anything on my DD-214 because it's classified. Well, like, legitimately, my DD-214 has the word classified on it, because they just didn't want to put the Libya thing on there for some reason. Yeah. And so it says like deployment location classified. It's like we were floating around on a boat, man. Like, we weren't doing anything.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The weird things that you see,
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
So
we were at sea for 10.5 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was an extended deployment, because they weren't sure like what was going to happen with Gaddafi, and like once Gaddafi was dead, all the militias were like running the country amok. It was crazy. But there was a fight in Congress, and Obama had said there's not going to be any boots on the ground. Obviously, we know there's always boots on the ground everywhere, and we just don't tell anybody that. At one point, they were actually going to send our EOD team into Libya to clear a route for McCain, who was going to visit the country, because after the regime fell, there was ordnance and guns everywhere. Like, ammo dumps had just been busted open, and stuff was all over the place. But they didn't want to send us, because we would have to be attached to the State Department, and they had no idea when they were going to get us back. And yeah, so when it's an open-ended thing like that, they freak out. Like, the Marine Corps is so poor, we can't afford to give anything up, and we're not giving up our EOD team. No way.
That's a good point there.
So they didn't end up sending us, like, even though we're right off the coast. We're literally right there. They brought a Navy team out of, I think, Spain, and sent them TAD.
Oh, no kidding.
So they're paying them mad money to go out there. And God bless Navy EOD. They are some cool guys, but they really don't know their ordnance very well. If you want them to jump, dive, shoot, support the SEALs, they're there. But like, I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack for that, but like, they don't know ordnance very well, and they're going to go out there and like clear the routes. Now, they've been trained at EOD school, so they can research all that stuff and knock it out. But
they do have a little bit of a different mission, I would assume.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And each service, EOD service, like, executes their mission differently.
Okay.
And so you get different specialties because of how they operate. And how they're required to do so. The Navy's the underwater ordnance. Nobody else is. I think the Marine Corps started to pick up that mission, or there was talk of it. They were going to do, like, because we're amphibious and like you're going for, like, they were going to do some shallow water ordnance stuff with the Marine Corps. I don't know what happened to that. I think cut ties with the community, but I stopped following the trends and caring about
Right.
the job when I finally exited. Like I needed to make a clean break
Hmm.
from the job when I finally left. So we were deployed like 2011 to 2012. I guess to get into some of the personal side of the story, when I got back from Afghanistan, I started to have some pain in one of my feet. And we ran
Hmm.
like 2 PFTs back to back, and then it really started to hurt. And I went in to medical and I'm like, hey, something is wrong. And they're like, oh, you just sprained it. I'm like, it's more than a sprain. They're like, no, just go to physical therapy. So I go to physical therapy for a month and it only gets worse.
Of
And
course, yeah.
I'm like, it's more than a sprain. And they're like, we'll get you an MRI. So they get the MRI. They're like, it's a partial tear to this particular tendon. And that happened because we were jumping over canals all the time. You don't
Yeah.
want to take the foot bridges because they're IED'd. So
Hmm.
jumping over canals with like a full combat loadout, and for us, it was a full
Oh yeah.
combat loadout plus a backpack full of explosives and tools. So it was like a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And you're always usually jump with the same foot forward and land on
Hmm.
that thing, and it just eventually started to break it down. My arches had started to fall even before I joined EOD, so everything
Oh
was
wow.
coming to a perfect storm. So by the time I got into the MEU workup, um, like after they did the MRI, they were
Hmm.
like, hey, like we're gonna have to run this big screw through your foot and fuse the whole thing together, and you're gonna lose a lot of mobility. And I said, how about no? Like, where
Oh
can you
my
send me for a
God.
second opinion? Because I don't need that.
Yeah.
So they sent me out into town, and this guy, and I should have known it was going to be a little whack because all of his patients were geriatric, and he's looking at one young guy, and he's like, I don't even know how you're walking right now, and I'm like, I guess because you don't know people have muscle mass and compensate. Like all of your elderly patients, they don't have that.
Yeah.
So he's like, here, wear this brace, maybe it'll heal. And I'm a young Marine. I'm like, all right, like I'll wear the brace and hopefully it'll heal. Well, there's no chance of it healing if you're
Yeah.
constantly running on it. And like, since we were working up for the MEU at that point, I was rucking almost daily, or
Right.
humping as the
Yeah.
Marine Corps says. Like,
That's right.
um, so like we're out there just, I'm constantly beating on it. And then they pushed the deployment date up. So we had to go into the raid certification packages for the MEU,
Mm.
and I was on the Hilo raid package. So we're out there for like a week straight, running through the woods, doing all this nonsense. And then it comes to the first certification raid, and we fly in, go through the whole exercise, and then we're going to fly out. And like, man, my ankle was screaming at this point, like, because all I did was just beat the crap out of it for a week
Yeah.
straight. And now we're in this certification, and so they're setting up the perimeter to land the helos at the end of the exercise, and like they're
Yeah.
like, go to the far side. So I'm looking across the LZ, and I don't see the hole right in front of me. And I
Hmm.
stepped into this hole, and I heard the tendon snap, and I
Oh
felt it like
dang.
pull up into my leg, and I just face planted hard. But you have no choice.
Wow.
You get back up and you keep running. Like
Yeah.
do you just lay there? No.
Yeah.
So I get up and then I'm laying there, and like the difference between training and actual uh, combat is insane. Like it took them 30 minutes to land the birds, because like they've got to take accountability in the air before they can land, to take accountability on the ground, to load up all the sticks, to make sure we've got
Right.
everybody before they pull out. So I came in on a 53. I leave on a 22. Now, if you've been on
Okay.
an Osprey, that thing has an amazing lift. Like it is so powerful.
Yeah.
It also has crash attenuation seats. Like a lot of people don't know this. If it crashes, the seats are designed to break off the wall and kind of save your spine from being broken from the impact.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I get onto the bird, and I'm like, I'm not taking my pack off. Like it's going to be a short ride over to New River, and we're going to be good. So I'm sitting forward, and the pack's behind me, and I just kick my broken ankle like underneath the seat to take the weight off of it.
Yeah.
And the guy goes from vertical rotors and tilts him forward into plane
Oh
mode,
no.
and he banks hard right, and that's enough to break the seat off the wall for us. So it's me and a lance corporal in full kit, and it's crushing the busted ankle already. And so
Oh.
it's just destroying it. And I push him off the seat into the aisle, and I roll off the seat so I can drag my ankle out. And we just sit on the floor for the rest of the flight until we get back. And I wait for everybody to get off the bird, and I'm screaming at the crew chief on the back ramp, which that's so ineffective. A, it wasn't his fault anyway, but B, like he listens to me screaming at him, and he probably can't hear it because the
Yeah.
rotors are turning, and I'm like, and then he looks at me, and goes, and I was like, I got you, buddy. All right. And so I just walked off the ramp and I left. That was my wife's birthday. So I hobbled home, took a shower,
Yeah.
and then still took her out to dinner. That was very painful, by the
Wow.
way. But because I was in a deployment status, they managed to get me an MRI in 2 days. Now, if you know naval
Oh,
medicine,
that's really good.
that's insane. But so it was completely torn and there was auxiliary damage, and they're like, well, you probably shouldn't deploy. But then they called EOD company and they're like, there's nobody to replace him. There's not a single body to spare.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, take me, because you still need somebody to watch the flight lines. You still need to do this. Like I still have a purpose here. And so the doctor was like, well, can you walk? I'm like, yeah, I can walk. He's like, can you run? I was like, I promise you, if somebody's shooting at me, I can run. And he was like, all right, you can deploy. So I got a chit for commercial off the shelf boots, so I could actually wear something more supportive. Big Marine Corps, if you're out there listening, get some better boots, man. Like the army has a decent system where at least people can choose boots that fit their feet better, and there's a couple options. Like the Marine Corps, man, no. And as soon as you get those boots wet, they have no support. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, which was a constant problem in Afghanistan, walking through all the canals and everything. Like, so when you say change your socks, man, I get it. Like there was a week where like every day you'd go out and immediately have to cross a canal and you had wet feet all day long in 120 degree heat. So
that goes right along with the first part of that, was stay motivated and change your socks. Well, if you're changing your socks, you do get a little dose of motivation in that, at least you feel better.
Yes, you do. You usually don't have the time in the middle of patrol to change the socks.
True.
But so I deployed on the MEU. We were gone for 10.5 months and I came back. And at that point, like a lot of medical issues were starting to add up.
Right.
And as well as like psychological issues, but I didn't get those addressed until I got some of the medical things addressed. And I ended up going to the TBI clinic on Camp Lejeune because I'd been around, some pretty close blasts, and I was a lot slower mentally than I had been in the past, dealing with that. And then I also had a surgery on my right ankle in October of 2012, and then rehabbed that for 6 months, and then I had the other side done preemptively because that tendon was getting stretched and it was going to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, on the right side, they cut off my heel bone and screwed it back on at an angle to sort of fake an arch. And they took part of the tendon off of my big toe to reattach the one that had broken.
Oh my God.
And then on the left side, like they had to cut on the outside of the heel to drop it, and then cut on the inside to sort of create an arch out of the whole thing. And then they screwed my 2 toes together to provide some stability. And just a lot of stuff.
Jeez. So you was the 2 surgeries on both your feet, and then you had something else, or was it just that?
So like, I don't know if it was the burn pits or what had happened, but I ended up having like a bone spur in my nose that I just couldn't breathe hardly at all.
Wow.
So I had nasal surgery, and then just to top it off, I'm like, let's go ahead and get this vasectomy done. We're going to knock that out. And then like a month after that, my appendix quit and I had to get my appendix taken out. So it was just like, it was like
everything.
5 surgeries in a year.
Oh my God.
Like, oddly enough, if you don't know, like, I guess men in their 30s is the most common demographic for appendicitis.
Really?
So the day I got my appendix out at Naval Hospital Camp Lejeune, there was 13 of us in one recovery room. And that
from the same thing?
All had appendectomies that day. And there was like 3 other or 4 other dudes in another overflow room. But there's like just 13 of us just laying there.
That is insane.
Yeah, like, and you don't know about it until you're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like after all that went down, I ended up being put on a med board.
Mm.
And long story short, I get medically retired. So at that point, they had started to combine the DoD rating and getting evaluated for the VA. And so
Mhm.
I had a DoD and a VA rating at the same time before I even exited, which was a massive blessing. And I didn't
Wow.
even realize how difficult that would have been.
Yeah.
Now talking to a lot of people, I would know.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that struggle trying to get all that stuff done. I mean, sometimes it is not an easy task.
No,
And depending on where you're going, and it's who you talk to and who's able to get stuff done. So there's good VSOs out there, and there's some that aren't as good. So it just depends.
yeah. Oh man. So there's just so much wrapped up in this story that I could tell you. We could be here for like 5 hours talking, but neither of us have that time, and I don't want to bore you to tears. So getting medically retired, it put me a year past my actual EAS,
Okay.
because I was supposed to get out in 2013, and then like something happened. I don't remember the detail. Uh, I had to appeal the med board for some reason, and it extended me
Okay.
by almost a year.
Wow.
Paperwork just gets lost in the system, and they take forever to do it. So
Now,
I got out.
were you with Wounded Warrior Battalion at that point, or were you still attached to the EOD?
So during the surgeries, I was actually still attached to EOD. I was running the supply section at that point,
Gotcha.
after that other deployment. And so I had convalescent leave, and then I'm coming back, and I'm like checking in with the company daily, but I still have to go to the hospital every single day for physical
Yeah.
therapy. And it became such a strain, especially after the second surgery. Like, we got a new company commander, and dude's showing up, and he's like, "Hey, Gunny, tell me what's going on." And I'm like, "I don't know. Let me check in with my staff sergeant. I've been at the hospital all morning." And it just got to the point where, like, I went to the master guns, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm no good to you guys anymore. Like, you need to get me off your TO and send me to Wounded Warrior Battalion,
Yeah.
um, so you can actually get somebody in here who's at work every day and
Right.
can run this section." And he's like, "Okay, well, I don't know that we're going to do that." And so like a week goes by, and then he calls me into his office, and he sits me down, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to know this isn't personal. Like, we appreciate you, but we're going to send you to Wounded Warrior Battalion." Like, okay, I've seen this game played before. It's like, okay, yeah, it was your idea. That's cool. um, and so they sent me over there, and that was a gift. Like, I was able to focus on my recovery
Yeah.
and do some other things to help my transition. And it gave me a false sense of closure. I felt like I had some time to process some things. I was getting some mental health help at that point, but
Right.
it was not very effective. I was very much fighting the whole thing. Like, I was there.
Mhm.
If you don't trust the people that you're dealing with, and you don't trust the process, you're not going to make much forward progress at all.
Yeah,
And
it's a good point.
I did not. Um, so
And then
eventually, go ahead.
would you say that Wounded Warrior Battalion is something that's worthwhile that we've been doing with our military, or
I think so. From my
yeah.
perspective, over 10 years
Yeah,
ago
yeah.
now, like, they had a lot of good people there that were applying common sense and trying to get
Hmm.
people help to transition out and give people a sense of community and purpose. And
Right.
I think they learned a lot of things. Like, I was able to do an internship while I was there. And I think from some of that, they ended up building the whole skill bridge program, where they get like guys that are transitioning out after 20 years, and they can
Yeah.
take some time on top of their
Terminal and all that stuff.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And and actually get into a position where they can take care of their family after they're out.
Right.
So that's huge. I had a friend who recently went through skill bridge in the last couple of years, and it was huge for him and his
Yeah.
family.
They've got some
Um,
good programs out there now, I think, that's very helpful.
yeah, and we still need to figure out how to change the mental health dynamic.
I would agree with
And
that.
like, there's so much work to be done. worldwide, but especially in the military culture. Like I've got some friends, and they came back from the initial invasion and every deployment after that, and their staff and COs are telling them, you don't have mental health problems. If you do, like, you're only going to be wrecking your own career, and like it's going to make trouble for everybody. So if you're having trouble, suck it up. And that was it, man. That's the brief they got on the plane ride home, and every subsequent thing. And like if you went and tried to seek help, like you were outcast. You weren't combat effective at that point, man. Get out.
Right.
And a lot of people got bad conduct discharges, and like other than honorable, because of like PTSD things that manifested in some difficult ways, and the Corps just processed them out. They didn't help them. They were just like, nah, man, we're not going to deal with that, because at the end of the day, the Marine Corps is a warfighting organization, and they need able-bodied people. It's a meat grinder. I'm going to use you up till you're done, and then I'm going to go find a new body that works well. They're not in the habit of doing preventative maintenance and trying to take care in the long term, because what is it, like 75 to 80% of the Corps rotates every 4 years.
Oh yeah.
It's a young fighting force for a reason. That's why you get that insane, dedicated warrior spirit from those young people.
Yeah. I think it has gotten better over time. It's not perfect, but it has gotten much better. But I think that what you were saying is, for the guys that went during your time, even my time when I went over, like when you got back, there was none of that. Hey, you need to go get help. You need to talk to somebody, anything like that. And unfortunately, like you said, guys get in trouble. Guys go out and do stupid things, and it kind of manifests that way. I wish there was some way we could get those guys help in a sense of getting their discharges and stuff turned around a little bit to help them out.
There are some cases of people being able to petition, and it's not easy, but some people have gotten their discharges upgraded. A friend of mine, like, God was working in some serious ways for this guy, because he got a call from like a lieutenant commander in the Navy. Like he had been out for a while, and his discharge, I think, was other than honorable. And this guy was like, I think that your case has completely been mismanaged, and you should have been medically retired. And like this guy just had been reviewing records, like somewhere in like it was mind blowing. And he managed to get this guy like general or an honorable upgrade, and like change the guy's life. But most people, they're not that lucky, and they're not connected enough with the community after they get out to actually know the ways to start that process and actually get an upgrade. Usually when somebody's discharged because of behavioral issues, like those continue to manifest in their civilian side, and things don't get better. In that case, there's just a lot of things against them at that point. I could really get off topic there, but there's a lot to that.
I'd agree with that. We could be here for hours talking about that. So you get your retirement, you're going on, kind of talk through what all you went through then, and then now I know you're doing, I don't know if it's a podcast, but I know you host little get-togethers and stuff to do different things, but can we kind of venture down that?
Absolutely. I'll try to compress it down, because there's a lot of history that builds up to those moments. I got out, went to auto diesel school, then I did another semester of college, and realized I still was not ready at all. Like after like yelling at some teachers and making a couple students cry, I knew that I wasn't ready for college. And that was my third iteration. I'd done online college when I was thinking about getting out in 2008. And so that was my third round of college, and I'm like, nope, still not ready for it. And so then I quit that, and I ended up volunteering with some nonprofits for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I ended up like breaking away from them, and that was right before COVID. And then I started like my blog. I did a blog, Mental Grenade, and that was really me processing a lot of my own stuff out loud to people. Like I had a couple VA counselors, and like you get shuffled around in the system, and it just
Oh
becomes
yeah.
too much. And eventually I'm like, all right, I'm done with you guys. Cause I kept getting new counselors all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to keep building a relationship that's not going to last. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. So I started that, and then COVID hit at the beginning of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of things have been building up into my life, and I was asking God, like, what do you want me to do with all this? Like, I don't understand how to deal with this problem. And he was like, no, you need to use the tools that have been given to you in this time to connect people together. And so I started this online meeting that eventually became known as Fob Truth, which now it's much more formalized. We're actually a 501c3.
Oh wow.
So Fob in the military aspect stands for, forward operating base. It's a place where people gather together, they equip, they train, and they deploy from there. Well, in our case here, Fob Truth stands for Fundamentals of Biblical Truth. And so we're gathering people here to talk about what we believe is the right way to live your life. Like, I'll say, I believe in Jesus Christ, but even if you don't, if you organize your life on the principles that are located within the biblical canon, like you're going to be a good citizen of the earth, and you're going to have a more fulfilled life, even if you don't believe, if you simply just live that way. And so like our goal with these online Zoom meetings is to bring people out of isolation that need to connect and help them reconnect to something that's answering a lot of the questions that veterans struggle with. Like the two big things that people struggle with when they get out, sense of identity and a sense of purpose, because now that the military is not giving it to them, like, do you know who you are? Like outside of that uniform, when every day is not dictated to you? Most don't. It took me a long time to figure it out for myself. But if you can orient yourself and understand that you were made in the image of God, and that you have an existential purpose daily to help other people, like that's massive. And that really changes people's life when you get them into a system of community and accountability, and you give them a reason to live. And so we used to meet for the first 5 years. We met every Thursday night, 52 weeks a year. There wasn't a night missed. I think maybe one week we missed in 5 years.
Wow.
That it didn't happen. But other than that, like every Thanksgiving, it happened. Like it was open. I told people not to show up, but I'm like, look, if you need to talk. And I had some super deep conversations with one or two people over Thanksgivings because they needed to show up and they needed to be there. But
interesting.
For a lot of different reasons, in the last couple of months, we switched over to Wednesdays. But every week, 52 weeks a year, we're meeting online to talk together, pray together, read scripture together. And so that's my main driving purpose right now. I've got some other side things that are happening, but go to fobtruth.org and check it out. You can read about it. The link.
Fobtruth.org.
Yep. FOBTRUTH.org.
And tell me if I did this correct. Is that right?
That is correct.
Ah, look at there. All right.
Very nice.
I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, that's the best thing about this process is like you're just going to keep doing it, keep getting better, and like quality's going to go up, man.
Absolutely. So now when you're doing these meetings, how many people are you having showing up on like regular?
On average, it's 10 to 15
wow, that's good.
people. And it's like the community rotates, and I'm not looking to make this something huge. It's not about my pride. It has nothing to do with that. It's if you need it in this season of your life, come be a part of it. And some people are there for a couple of years and then they move on to another season. Some people PCS and the time doesn't work for them. Some people like they're just alone and then they get married and they're in a much better place and they move on, and that's cool. Like it's really not about membership and doing all these things. No, it's like we legitimately want to be there and support you in your spiritual journey, because most people are talking about your physical health and your mental health, and sometimes emotional health. There's just tied together with mental health, but like your spiritual health is so deep and it's not being acknowledged in the same way, and the VA won't address it directly because it's such a hot topic. And so there's a massive gap there, and there's a lot of great nonprofits out there that are stepping in to fill that void. but a lot of them are just a 1 week experience. Like it's a real
Yeah.
intensive, and then there's some follow on for like a couple months, but it's haphazard and it usually breaks down at some point.
Right.
And I just want to be that that catch, that trap. Like if you can fall into the trap, here we are. We're going to hold
Yeah.
on to you, and
I
we're
like
here
it.
for you for as long as you need us.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's really cool.
it's been a healthy support structure for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I need it just as much as all the other
Yeah.
people need it. And it's a system of accountability for me. It's a place I know that I need to
Mm.
be every single week, whether I'm
Yeah.
traveling or not. I have a computer and we're logging in and we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And now, so you struggle with the mental health aspect, what would be your advice for anybody that has kind of been struggling with that and pushing forward? What do you say to them?
Don't quit. Keep
Mm.
seeking help. It will take you many years, multiple types of therapy, multiple therapists, and other extracurricular therapies to get where you want to go.
Yeah.
Like one thing might not have worked for you, try something else. Like, did you have a bad experience? I did too. Like, don't quit, keep going, because like this is your mind. Your mind controls everything else.
Yeah.
Like if your mind's not right, man, your body's not going to be right. Like you're just going to have a sub quality life. Like you could have so much more, but you have to fight for it. And it's going to be hard. Like
Yeah.
there's no doubt to that. And you need other people in your life that are going to continue to help you in that journey. You can't do
Right.
it by yourself. Like isolation is the enemy of restoration. If you isolate
Ooh.
yourself, there's like one or two truths that I've really dug up in the last couple of years, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
If you
That's
isolate,
really good.
you're cutting yourself off, and you're not going to get better. I tried to, like when we got out, I'm like, babe, I want to move to South Dakota. I don't want to see people. Like I need to be, and some
Yeah.
people it does work for. Some people like they just need to be in a less populated place and they can live a great
Hmm.
life, but it wouldn't have worked well for me. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying if you're a vet and you went and lived in a low population place like that you did something wrong. No, like it works for some people, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the right thing for me. The wife was like, no, we're not going to do that because we don't know anybody there and our kids are still young. Like that's going to be foolishness. So we ended up moving back to Pennsylvania where she's from, and we were close to her
Okay.
family and had a really good support network. And that was extremely important.
Nice.
It allowed us to work on our marriage and do some things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say like I went and sought help when I needed to. No, like it got so bad to the point where my wife looked at me and said, if you don't go get help, I'm going to take the kids and I'm going to leave. I'm not going to
Yeah.
divorce you. I'll come back when they're grown, but I'm not going to subject our children to who you are right now.
Wow.
And I had this real decision moment where like
Hmm.
I felt the devil show up and go, dude, this is your chance, man. Like she
Yeah.
gave you an out. All you have to do is go, okay, see ya. And then you don't
Yeah.
have the responsibility. You don't have to raise these kids. You can just do whatever you want. Here's some great ideas, by the way. And I just got like temptation after temptation dropped
Yeah.
into my mind. And I had to make that decision and go, no, I want my family. I want my marriage. And I'm going to
Hmm.
fight for this. And that's when I started getting help. But it
Nice.
wasn't, it was a long process. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, I just got better, because I went to seek help. No, it's like decades worth of work at this point where we're like pushing through and I'm still trying to weed out a lot of the nonsense that's in my head.
Hmm.
And you're never going to get it all out. Like there's certain
Yeah.
things that change. Um, like you have PTS and then you have PTSD. I think there is a distinction
Hmm.
between the two. Like some people don't like to call
Yeah.
it PTSD. It's not a disorder. I think it can be a disorder. It gets to the point where, it disorders your life when
Yeah.
the stress that you're feeling in your mind is manifesting in destructive behaviors. That's a disorder. And so
Mm.
you should seek help either way, whether it's just stress or whether it's become a disorder. But
Yeah.
like it's manifesting and people can see it when it's a disorder. Some people like aren't just dealing with normal stress, they legitimately have PTSD.
Yeah.
um, But even if you just have post-traumatic stress, like there's still, like, you still need to be working on it. You need to be talking to people and getting that help. And it's a constant thing, but I don't think you'll ever alleviate everything. I don't think
Yeah.
that's possible, because after a sustained period of time in these environments, there are changes biologically that have happened. And science has proved out, like, trauma creates DNA markers. But even from a psychological standpoint, there's some things that I will never look at the same way. Some of my
Yeah.
behaviors have been altered for the rest of my life because I
Yeah.
spent time in that environment being hunted and hunting other people and things, like
Right.
that's a biological, like, it's a sincere shift in the way you look at the world.
Mm. I think you said something that it could take decades, and you still are going to have to continue to work through things. And I think that's something that, especially in today's society, they want that easy fix and something to happen right now.
Yeah.
It's a pill, it's a something, and that's something that we have to realize, that it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to take the rest of your life dealing with and trying to figure things out.
Yeah. And there's good strategies there. Like, I believe that pharmacology is necessary at times, because
Hmm.
you have to stabilize the individual for them to be able to appropriately participate in other types of therapy.
Yeah.
But the pharmacology is not the answer. It's the step forward in finding the answer. Now,
Yeah, that's good.
there are some people, like, I'm still wrestling with a dose of an antidepressant. I try to go off of it sometimes, and then, like, I realize why I'm still on it, and then I go back
Yeah.
to it. But, like, I've eliminated most everything else that I was on, because, like,
Yeah.
you keep fighting to get better. You keep seeking out more treatments that can improve your life. Like, don't don't accept your new normal as your final destination. Like, people are like,
Mm.
well, this is your new normal. It's like, yeah, for now. Like, I'm going to continue to fight. Like, you hear all these stories of the people that were told they'll never walk again, they'll never
Yeah.
speak again, they'll never do these things, and it's their attitude towards the whole thing, that fu attitude, that's going to go out there and prove people wrong. Like, that's how
Yeah.
you push forward. It's that indomitable spirit that makes Marines,
Yeah.
and all the other service people. I've known amazing, like, men and women from all branches of service, except for Space Force. Never met a Space Force person.
I
So
I've met one. I've only met one.
my,
Yeah.
my friend came back. Actually, I had another EOD tech staying with me this past weekend, and he met one at a previous program he was just coming from. And I'm like, oh, it's a unicorn, man. Like, what was it like? What is he like?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm waiting for my first Space Force candidate to come on the show and talk. So if anybody is in the Space Force and would like to come on the show, I'm here. Let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be an interesting conversation. Like, what do you
Yeah, it
actually do?
would.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you.
Yeah, that's classified. Oh, it would be like on your DD-214, right?
Yeah, like,
Classified mark. Yeah, good times. Well, shoot, man, thanks for coming on and sharing all this stuff. This is fantastic. Fobtruth.org. It's a Zoom that you'll go to. It's a meeting in Zoom, you said?
yeah, absolutely. Like, we have a Facebook page, we got an Instagram account. Go to the website; it'll tell you about these things. Um, you can email fobtruth@gmail.com if you want more information, and just talk to us directly. Uh, we're here, like, to have an honest conversation about what the Bible says and how we can apply it to our lives. All
Yeah.
of us have been hurt in that arena.
Hmm.
Come with your angry questions and let's just talk about it, because some patient people walked me through some stuff and got me to a place where I could heal and start to grow in that area.
Very nice. Well, I guess we're kind of getting close to the end. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or cover that maybe we haven't?
Oh man, like,
There's so much.
there is, like, it's mind-blowing the things you have to gloss over in a conversation. It's almost 2 hours now, and
Yeah.
I haven't told you hardly anything. Like,
Yeah.
a decade of adventures after getting out now. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a lot going on. But I think one of the I just want to say to all the people that are watching and listening to this, like, don't quit, get involved, like, get out there, find a community that works for you, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be veterans. I promise you, civilians can understand. Like, a lot of times we spend the time saying, oh, well, they'll never understand. It's like, no, they won't completely understand. But if you don't talk
Right.
to them about what happened, like, they won't understand. But
Yeah.
you can tell people a lot of things without giving them all of the graphic details, and they can understand a lot. And we
Yeah.
can bridge that military civilian divide that people like keep growing, rather than breaking it down and sitting and
Yeah.
talking about these experiences and people understanding the sacrifices. Like, that's what you're doing right here by
Yeah.
bringing these stories into the public and helping people understand the sacrifices that have been made and the strains that were placed on families, and how difficult it is to re-enter into society and try to integrate into everyday life after
Yeah.
you've done some of these things. Like, but
Absolutely.
don't quit. Like, find whatever your passion is and plug into that community, be a part of it,
Mm.
bring people into your life, and care. It's worth the journey.
Absolutely. That was good. That was good. Well, hey man, I'm gonna hit you up with these full auto rapid fire questions if you don't mind.
Yep, sure.
All right. Number one, what is your proudest military moment?
Oh, I struggle with superlatives. What is my proudest military moment?
Yeah.
Getting out with my marriage intact.
Ooh, that was a good one. That was really good. I've never had anybody say that one. That was good. All right. What is your most embarrassing military moment?
I don't know if that's not embarrassing for me. Uh, I that was professional. This is once again a superlative. I think there was one particular shot in Afghanistan that I applied too many explosives too much, and I did not do what I was supposed to do. Like, instead of breaking something apart, I obliterated it, and that was a pretty heavy hit on my professional appearance. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, go big or go home, right?
yeah.
All right. If you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
I think I would be a company commander that could
Mm,
prevent people from doing needlessly dangerous things. I know that has a lot of caveats to it, but like,
yeah.
I saw how effective a good leader could be in a
Hmm.
kinetic environment and prevent people from wasting their lives uh, for a cause that could never be won.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good answer, man. That's good. We're doing good here. All right. If you could change one rule in the military, what would it be?
I think Hegseth just did it, man. We're going to standardize. Like, there shouldn't be like gender differences. Like, the job is the job regardless of what your gender is, so just
Yeah.
standardize across the board, and if you can meet that standard, then it's good to go. Like, I've known some exceptional women in the military who
Hmm.
are freaking awesome, like, but there shouldn't be separate standards for that. Like, and there should be different standards for different jobs. I'm not saying
Yeah.
one standard across the board, because that's foolishness. But
Agreed.
like, but if this job requires this particular set of standards, everyone entering into that job should meet those standards,
Hmm.
regardless of what your gender, race, creed, color, any of that shenanigans is if you can meet those standards and execute that job to the best of your ability, then by God, do it. But don't lower the standards for
Absolutely.
anybody.
Yeah, that's good. All right. What is one lesson or skill that you learned that you still use today?
Who that maybe that's too broad. I want to say humility, right? Like,
Mm,
I grew up and there was a significant number of things that I wanted to know but didn't learn early on.
hmm.
And like, take for instance, when we were together in 29 Palms, like, I didn't
Yeah.
really know anything about vehicles, but if you remember Sergeant Ferd,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
he was motor T. And so like, I went to this dude and I'm like, yo, I've got this truck, it's broken. Can you teach me how to fix my truck? You know, like
Yeah.
he taught me how to change a tire, how to change my oil, how to like fix the carburetor, like all these
Right.
things. And like, as my one friend says, like humility is the rocket fuel for success. Like if you can just put your pride aside and like be teachable, you're going to learn a lot of stuff really fast.
Yeah. And that's good. I like it. All right, ready? In the zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice?
22 rifle,
Okay. All
high
right.
capacity 22 rifle,
I like it. All right.
headshots all day long. Seriously, when you have to carry the weight of your own ammo, like
that's true.
that's it, man. Like you get
That's
an
a good
accurate
point.
22, carry
Yeah,
thousands of rounds with you.
that is very true. All right. What animal best describes your time in service?
I don't know. Probably that's a bit too surgical. Probably a Dutch Shepherd. Like the dog it's a powerhouse. It's angry. It's violent, but like it's not as surgical as it needs to be. And maybe sometimes it it just runs over things that it should really just take its time with.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. I like that. All right. These two are going to be real difficult for you, so I apologize.
All right.
Which branch of the military has the sexiest uniforms?
I'm still wearing red. I mean, like I can't get rid of the Marine Corps colors, man. Like obviously, like I think just about
Yeah.
every service agrees it has to be the Marine Corps.
So far, everyone has said, even other services on here, and I've only had like two, but they've all said the Marines had the sexiest uniform. So, that's pretty common. And of course, which branch of the service is the best?
Whichever one's pulling your ass out of a sling. Like, I
I
mean,
did.
generally, I know you want to hear the Marine Corps, but it's like if you've ever been in an environment and like some Army dudes managed to pull you out of a bad situation, they're the best
Good
service
point.
in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good
So
point. Yeah, I like that. All right. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
yes, yep.
Awesome. Well, man, this is it. We come to an end. I'll give you one last time to say words of wisdom or anything else that you want to pass along. Obviously, fobtruth.org. Go check them out. You have somebody to talk with, and it'll be a good time. So, yeah, floor's yours, man.
I want to say thanks for having me on. Like keep living your life. Like there's so many more stories to be written, and I think a lot of people get trapped in ruminating over the past. And like
Yeah,
you can't you can't ignore the past. You can continue to compartmentalize it, but it's just going to bust out. It'll eat you alive. It'll blow up your
yeah,
life. Like you have to process those difficult traumas and file them as normal memories so that they don't hijack your everyday. Like
right.
I still have those what do they call them, disturbing unwanted memories. Like
Mm,
those things, they appear in your mind.
yeah,
Something will trigger them, and you're back in a certain place and you're seeing certain things, but it doesn't
hmm,
have to wreck your whole day. Like
right.
you have to deal with it so that it's not killing you. Most of the time I hear guys, they're like, well, I don't want to rip the scab off, I don't want to do this. A scab's an
Yeah,
indicator of healing, but what you have is like you've sewn shut a festering wound. It's filled with
yeah.
pus, man. You've got to open it back up and irrigate it, clean the wound out, and actually get it
Mm,
to start healing, because it's not a scab, dude. It's not. Like you're not healing.
yeah.
It's cancer. It's eating you from the inside out.
Dang.
Don't quit. Like it can get better if you work on it.
Hmm.
That's the last thing I have to say.
Awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on here, telling your stories. Good catching up a little bit too.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks for everything that you're doing out there. So to
Thanks.
all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Drew cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please, please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies that you served with, ask them how they're doing. And if they need that helping hand, please give it to them. Drew, one last time, thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. To all the listeners, stay motivated. Change your socks.